Kumlan and Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Test Vav, and we're going through Tanakh, who the authors were for each of the Tanakh, and it's not like we would have thought that it was actually written by the people themselves. Some are autobiographies, some are, biographies. By the way, in a side issue, the Gemara has over here that David wrote Tehillim, but the Gemara spelled David Dalet Vav Dalet, and there's a big machlekes of the pasuk of how do you write David, because in Divrei Yamim when it says David is Dalet Vav Yud Dalet, and here's Dalet Vav Dalet. So there's an argument. I think the general acceptance, I believe, as Yosef said, I borrowed David. So, but the Bes Yosef and Ebenezer, I think, if I remember correctly, Paskas, he should be Dalet above Dalet. Okay, we're up to the word Amamar. About 10 lines from the top of the page, up Tezvav Amad Aleph Kumlan Abad Gemara. Amamar. Yeshua Kosev Sifroi. You said before that Yeshua wrote Yeshua, and the Shemaim Psukim of the last 8 Psukim of the Torah. Tanya, we actually learned the Braisa to support that. Now, what happened in the last 8 Psukim of the Torah? The very 8th pasuk before the end of the Torah says, "Vayomas Sham Moshe Eved Hashem." Now, how can Moshe have written and Moshe passed away there? So therefore, it must have been Yeshua wrote it, and this supports the Braisa. It is supported by a Braisa. Tanya, we learned. Yeshua wrote it. The Tanya learned by Vayomas Sham Moshe Eved Hashem. Evshem Moshe Mes. Moshe, is it possible that Moshe should pass away? And because he writes Vayom Moshe, the other gift says Evshem Moshe Chai. Moshe is still alive, and he writes that he passed away. It's a lie. In other words, there's two possible. The question can be learned 2 ways. Either the question is a lie. He's alive and he's right. He died, or if it's the truth, but he passed away already. How can he still continue writing? Ela Adkan Kosa Moshe. Till now, Moshe wrote Nikan Be'ela Kosa Yeshua. Till now, Moshe wrote it. From now on, it's Yeshua who wrote it. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So that's why we say Yeshua wrote this in the last 8 psukim. Omlav Shimon Efshes Sefer Torah Chosar Achas. How can Sefer Torah be missing one letter? See, it says L'Koyach Sefer HaTorah has a Moshe Rabbeinu says to the people, take this Sefer Torah, and if he wrote it, mine is the last 8 psukim. How can it be a kosher Sefer Torah? Someone to learn from here that this is the basis. We have more Menachos different. That this is the basis that if one letter is missing in the Torah, the entire Torah is possible. We're in Daf Tezvav, about 20 lines on the top of the page. We're working out who wrote the last 8 psukim in the Torah. So one opinion says Yeshua wrote it because it says Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. But Rav Shimon disagrees. Moshe Rabbeinu handed over, a proper Sefer Torah. El Adkan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer. Till now, the Eibishter says Moshe Omer v'Kaisif. Moshe said, and then he wrote it down. In fact, this is the basis of halacha that a sefer, when he writes a Sefer Torah, he should actually read it out loud as he is writing. It's from this Gemara right here. They should say it out loud and then write it down. But Mekan be'elef from here on in, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer u'Moshe Kosev b'dema. But here, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it and write it; he just wrote it, and b'dema with tears. Moshe Rabbeinu says, like Baruch, give me his Talmud said, "Mepiv Yikra like told one be'elef, and he Kosev ala Sefer b'yoy." I want that he said, and then I wrote it down. So, what exactly is the answer? So, if the problem is saying a lie, he didn't say it. He's saying that till now he said and he wrote, he just wrote, as if to say writing a lie is not as bad as saying a lie. That's the shot. But if the question was if he was passed away already, how can he? If Vitaka passed away, how did he continue writing? How does this answer the question? Also, by saying he wrote with tears, which means he didn't use ink, and it's not a permanent thing, so it's not really considered a lie because it's not a permanent thing. But I saw a beautiful shot, and I can't remember who said it, that bedemas and the word dimu are mixed up. There used to be a magazine called Akriya Vavdusha, which was given out during World War II in America by the three Rebbe. Everyone was anonymous. And there was a section there in the very back every time. It's called Oisius Parchas. It was like a paragraph, a bunch of letters jumbled together. No one had a clue what it said or what it did. And it's called Oisius Parchas. And I remember reading, there's an English section, and I have it at home, but there's an English section there where it says, 1945. I already wrote in 1943 in the Oisius Parchas that this is going to happen. So that's what he did. Bidema. He put the last 8 psukim. He wrote all the letters, but it was one long word, and therefore it didn't mean anything. It was only after he passed away that we were able to, put the words together and figure out what he said. So it's not a lie. Now, says about further, so according to Hutul we have a halacha, and it'll make more sense if we follow Rabbi Yehuda. The last day psukim yochid koida oisan, an individual reads it. Why the last day psukim different? Tell you in a second what it means an individual. Why the last day psukim? Lema, let us say the loy kirab Shimon. It's only if Yeshua wrote it, it makes sense. It's different halachas. I felt that Reb Shimon because he did a different format instead of saying it and writing it. He just wrote it down and wrote it tears. Therefore, the laws change. Now, what exactly does it mean yachid? Big machlekes is showing here. You have some Rishonim say that yachid means you have to get the greater Talmid Chacham yachid, the individual, like a yachid mumche, he should be the one who should get this aliyah. Others say this aliyah, you want to have an achar and everything else, but you cannot break up this aliyah and this bracha but you cannot break it up. You have to read the entire 8 psukim in one go. Others say that this aliyah, you can't have 2 people reading together. And that other Rishonim don't like because you can't have any pasuk in the Torah, 2 people reading together. Even though we learned that you need a sirsa, you need a gabbai standing next to the balkoida, but just like the Eibishter gave through a sirsa, Moshe Rabbeinu, we want someone else. But his role is to be gabbai, to call up the people, just like Moshe Rabbeinu got the Eden together to listen to the Eibishter. The gabbai's role is like Moshe. That's why some pasukim say that a gabbai is even more important than the Rav at the shul, because the gabbai is like Moshe Rabbeinu, the sirsa in between the Eibishter and the Eden, and he calls up. Tosfos brings an opinion that maybe the Gabbai actually reads along the Torah as well, but quietly, in a quiet way. Also, today we have 2 people of Aliyah, and one guy, is Al Qaeda, one person reads it quietly himself because we don't embarrass anyone. But the Rambam is the most fascinating. The Rambam learns, and everyone tries to understand what the Rambam means. The Rambam learns Yochid Koida means you don't need a minion. The rest of the Torah you need a minion. For these 8 psukim, you don't need a minion. And the Ravid, everyone asks, what's the basis for that? What's the logic in that? But it seems as if that these that were Kozman Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in the Torah, you need a minion. But once the Moshe Rabbeinu was not involved in the last day psukim, you don't need a minion. You need a headburn that. You continue the Gemara. Yeshua Kosev Sifra. Yeshua wrote his sefer. So someone will say he's talking about it. If you already had a minion till that pasuk, then they walk out, you can continue reading. That's what they say. But it says Yeshua Yeshua writes the sefer. It says by Yomas Yeshua ben Nun Eved Hashem. It says Yeshua, same problem. He passed away in the middle of in the end of Yeshua before he finished it. So the Gemara, the Askilos, that Elazar ben Aaron continued. It says only a couple of psukim later, Elazar ben Aaron Mace, the Aski Pinchas concluded. Shmuel calls it. Shmuel wrote his Shmuel. But Shmuel Mace, it says the same problem that Shmuel passed away before the end of Shmuel. So he answered the Aski God HaChoyze v'Nozan HaNavi, that God HaChoyze and Nozan HaNavi, they finished it. David Kosev Sefer Tilim Aida Saras Kanim. David wrote the Sefer Tilim through 10 Kanim. Even if you go through the names of the Gemara before, it turns out to be 11. So Tosfos brings 2 opinions whether Shloim HaMelech is included or not included. If Shloim HaMelech is included, then Osaf is actually one of the 3 children of Kailach, so it's 10. If Shloim HaMelech is not included, then Osaf was a separate person altogether. Now, why wouldn't Shloim HaMelech be included when you have Shloim? We have a few capitals to him. So he says Shloim didn't say it. Shloim HaMelech said it on behalf of Shloim. But Ben Engagement says something interesting. He says there are 10 people there, and Adam Adishon doesn't count. Doesn't say why not, but Adam Adishon doesn't count. So David Amel wrote through 10 people. The lecture Nami Gochid is Esan Azrachi. Why don't you include him as well? Esan Azrachi is Avram. Esan is Avram. There's another name for it. How do I know? Because here it says Esan Azrachi. It says Esan masculine Esan Azrachi. Well, Ksiv Hasam, and there it says Mi Heyim Mizrach, who began shining Mizrach Tzedek. So therefore, the idea of shining was, Mizrach is Avram. Kachosh Moshe, Kachosh Haman L'chayda. It says it's through Moshe, and then he counts Haman as well. And Amarab Haman and Moshe isn't the real believer. Who's the real believer? That's Moshe. See, here it says Haman. It says in Malacha there the names of different people there. That he said he was smarter than Esan, Azrach, and Haman. Moshe Ben is described as the true faithful. So Moshe Ben is Haman. Answering, but today Haman have 2 different Hamans. Moshe Kosev Sifra. The 10 people. They said these capitulach, these chapters, and Dover Mel wrote them and recorded them as part of Tilim. Moshe Kosev Sifroi, U Parshas Bilam. He wrote Parshas Bilam. I told you yesterday that says that he wrote, there's more to Bilam what we have, but he didn't write it all down. The Eve. And Moshe Ben wrote Eve. So according to this Brisa, Eve lived in the times of Moshe. In fact, we have the Medrash. He doesn't bring down that Pari sat and consulted the three consultants, and one of them is Eve. If we have time, I'll tell you a very interesting shot in his punishment. Don't have time. There's a support that Eve and Moshe. There's an opinion that says that Eve is the most controversial figure because the who he was, when he lived, and his the religion and so on and so forth is all contested here. And if he ever lived. Here it says, I wish that this would happen and so on and so forth, and write down all my words, immediately write down my words. Eve says, it says over there, how will I know? Moshe Rabbeinu says, how it's going to happen. If the basis of the word Ephod, we have other people use the word Ephod. Maybe Yitzchak, it says me Ephod, who did this? Maybe time of Yaakov, the Chsiv, Im Ken Ephod, Zois Asu. Maybe in times of Yosef, the Chsiv, it says Ephod Hemroim. Now, even though Yaakov and Yosef overlapped, it means, the later period. But it is because Ephod Hemroim is when Yosef was 17 years old. So unfortunately, try to understand what's the machlek here exactly. If you lived in the time of Yosef or the time of Yaakov. We're talking about Yosef when he was young and Yaakov was still alive. What's the machlekes? Well, I know that they don't think so. See, it says Meyitin b'sefer that Eve said, "I wish they would put it down." At the end of that passage, it said, "I wish you put down a sefer of Yechok will become like standard." And me, or Moshe dikim mechaykev. Who's true? The lawgiver is Moshe. See, they should like some chalak is mechaykev. So therefore, so who's described as a mechaykev? The lawgiver that is Moshe. Rava says Eve is in the time of Ragnar. So Rava clearly holds that Eve was not Jewish. Because where was he in times of Ragnar? Not by the Eden. He was in Canaan. He was a person that died. In Uch is a man called Eve. But they saw that this person they buried, and so on. And do they still have this big tzaddik called Eitz? There's a guy. What's this? Two words. Yes, that person Eve still alive who is living such a long life, like an age, Omegin al Doidik age is protecting the generation. So that means he'll protect the people of Canaan. So therefore, Eve, according to Rava, was a guy in the times of Moshe as well. Yosef, so that's the machlekes. If you live in times of Moshe as a Yid, or you live in times of Moshe as a guy.
It's at the same time.
Oh, but it's a Yid or a guy. That's the machlekes. The problem is Yosef and Yaakov. Yossi Rahum Rabbanan sat there, made Rab Shmuel Malachmeni. Yossi come and sat there and said, Eve never happened. Elamosha, whole thing is an allegory. The whole idea is to give us Musa to tell us a bad thing happens to a person. Don't be despondent and don't feel dejected, and so on. And like the friends of Eve said, the Abishter, gave you all these things. He said, how can you take it? He never existed. It says in the pasuk, Ish Hoya Be'edet Ut Eve Shmai. It says it's a person. So he answered back. Elam Yaakov answered the question. When I don't know if was reprimanded by the Navi, it says, well, the Rosh ain't called gave a mashal about a rich person and a poor person only has one little lamb. And when you stole Basheva, me have it. Did it happen? No, it was a mashal. Elam Moshe Balma, even though he said there was a poor person. Just because he said there was a person doesn't mean that's not a mashal. He said, no, my problem is, why does it tell you where it came from? If the whole thing is a mashal, say it was a person. And so on. Forget Moshe, Yaakov, Yitzchak. He lived in the time of Ezra when they went to up from Golus. In fact, he was in Beit and he was a Yid. Meisha has a question. Meisha knows the Shalit and the Brisa. The years of Eve, Mishar Shenichni Yisrael the Mitzrayim, the Adsher Yatzer 210 years. He lived in the times of the Eden were Mitzrayim. He outlived, Yaakov and Yosef, and he lived all the way and through Moshe's times. Amen was that's no proof. The Mishnah tell you how many years he lived, but it doesn't tell you when he lived. Just like the time Shenichlu Yisrael, let me tell you about 210 years. Makes a question. It says Shimon Nevi in Istanbul of 7 to be in that prophecy on behalf of the Goy in Belaim Bilam, but Avi Bilam and Boy, the Eliphaz Hatim, he will build a Sheikh, but Sefer Namsi, believe me, Barke El Habuzi. These are all the four, these were the Nevi'im that all testify prophecy on behalf of the Goy. So it's even mentioned there. He's a guy. The Gemara will time make Eliyav Barkil Amisrael. Eliyav is not a Yid. But it says Mishpach has Ram. It says it's Ram, and some say Ram is Avram. That means he's tracing his lineage back to Avram Avinu. Ella in Abuya in Belumas Oilam. They were eating who prophesied to the Goyim. Just like he did, it was a Yid who prophesied on behalf of the Goyim. Eve could have been a Yid and he prophesied to the Goyim. L'umas Oilam. Think about Otukul Levi, Mila in Belumas Oilam. So then why highlight these seven? Every Goy, even Shai, everybody said Nevi'is regarding the Goyim as well. It depends what the primary mission was. Hasam Ike Nevi Osayili Yisrael. All other Nevi'im, they're mainly prophesying to the Yid. They mentioned the Goy. Hacha Ike Nevi Osayili. Primarily there for the Goy. So Eve was a Navi. Amazing question. Chassid was a chassid amongst the goyim. The Eve Shmais clearly was a chassid amongst the goyim, and his name was Eve. He known his might take this world. It's Makablas on this world because he was a goy. He started to taunt, and he started to have recrimination against the Rishon. He got a little portion of his Chano, but he got an 18 portion as well in his Master. So he should lose the Haba. So he clearly there's a guy. So, you're right. Tanoi, he's a Machlekes Tanoi. We'll bring a whole bunch of opinions about Eve. Most of them will hold that as a Yid, except one. Tanoi learned. I will also remember Eve and Meshvei Shepma, a new thing. He was in the time of the judges. And it says in the Pasuk, Hein Atem Kulchem Im Chazisam. Eve said, you all saw. Why are you wasting your time? Which generation is it that they're all corrupt? The generation where they judge the judges. We'll come back to that soon, what that means. That the people, the laymen, judge the judges. Says, he lived in the times of Achashverosh. So which sort of fits in with what he said about Oile Goyle, because that was only a few years prior. Like it says, there weren't pretty women like Eve's daughters in the entire world. 1 second. So when did they make a contest to know about pretty women? When was that time there was a contest? And yet they weren't chosen because they made that Achashverosh should want Esther. They even made David. Maybe a little time David. Also they pursue. Remember, don't know when he was old. He looked for the see by Yibakshir Nadi. They also looked for pretty women. Also the Chol Yisrael. But times David they don't look at Yisrael. Hacha b'Chala Arez, entire planet, entire world. I'm not saying even in Malchus Shva. Eve lived in the time Malchus Shva. And Shnema, but it says who came and hurt Eve or his family. One of the groups that came was what it says in the passage there. That Shva came and attacked Eve and took away, his workers and so on. And the workers they killed and took away some of his cattle. So we see Shva was around at that time. Eve Mekazma in time Muchanetzah, which brings him earlier, in the earlier period of the Golus and Bubble. Now it says Kazdim is in the part of that Kazdim Samu Shloisha Roshim. They divided the 3 groups and they went and they attacked. They took away the camels and so on. Yeshem even Yaakov. He lived in town Yaakov, and guess what? The Dina Bas Yaakov Nassan. He married Dina Bas Yaakov. Siv Hacha, and according to this, they would say that he was a goy. Siv Hacha. Here it says that that you speak like one of those women that are, I don't know, not inappropriately or improper. And we find that expression by Dina Kinavola Asa Israel. That abomination was done by the Eden. The Kulu Tanoi Svidalu, they all hold that Eve Misrael Habla, except the Yeshayim, who married Dina, because the only Eden then were Yaakov and his children. So obviously he was not a Yid. Which means that everybody else was a Yid. The big machlekes about the Eden prior to Mount Torah were Bnei Yisrael or Bnei Neach. By highlighting that Eve was not a Yid and everyone else was a Yid, means that this Brisa holds that they had a din of Bnei Yisrael. Some say that was a machlekes in Yosef and his brothers. He said that they ate an animal that wasn't slaughtered yet. The animal was still alive. It was talking about they shechted the animal, but it was a mafacheses. It was still jumping around. And a Yid, because shechita is a mitzvah, they already permitted to eat from it. But as a b'neiach, you're not allowed to till it's dead. And Yosef felt that they were b'neiach, and the Yosef's brothers and all felt that they were Yidden, and therefore they did the right thing. So maybe that's the machlekes in times of Yosef, in times of Yaakov, is whether he was a ben Yisrael or a ben Leach, something like that. And the Gemara continues. Except the Yeshayim, these are those oil mahab. If he was a guy, boss of the Shach, Moshe Mishav, Yishkel Avichav. He was a guy. How can he be a navi? We know that after Moshe Rabbeinu, they were no longer Nevi'im by the guy, because Bilam was at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, it says that Bilam was the economic minister. Moshe Rabbeinu was a king of Kush, Ethiopia, for 40 years, and his advisor was none other than Bilam himself. They all knew each other. Because Moshe Rabbeinu davened that the Eibusha should no longer rest on the Goyim, but not Hashem acquiesced. Remember, it says when he davened to the Eibusha, we want to be different than all the other nations. That generation was a terrible generation. They were all involved in the debauchery. Says the Apostle, you kulchem chazitzem, you saw. Why should you be so corrupt? So here, Hevel Tabela is not just corrupt, but it's also immorality. And it says in the pasuk, Shuvi Hashalami, Shuvi Bener Zebach, and that's talking about immorality. Ema Benavua, we find the word to see also by Navua. It says Chazon Yishai Ben Ametz. So maybe that's what he's talking about. In the Views, who said it means corruption and headiness and all that. In King Lama is a hevel tabel lamali. What do you have to say hevel tabel? When he says, hey, not to go to Chazis, it's a good thing in the Views. He doesn't say may I shayf. He judged the judges. What does that mean? A generation that judges judges. He says, take away the splinter from your eyes. He says to him, so when the judge says, it's an example, take the splinter away from your eye, tell not only a splinter, but you have a beam between your eyes. In other words, you're shifty and cunning. If a judge accused them, your money's not pure, they have all these different alloys in there. And your wine that you sell full of water. You're just as corrupt as I am. Now there's a big problem because the Shaitan ruled Tzaddikim. It says there was no doifi there, nothing. And here's a Shveita Shaftin. The controversy is about Shimshon Hagiba, whether he was considered tzaddik or not. But and Abimelech, did he do the wrong thing by going to Chutz La'aretz? He deserted his people. But everyone else is considered tzaddikim. So maybe the pshat Shveita Shaftin is not that the Shaftin deserved to be judged this way. The people were so corrupt that even when they looked at the tzaddikim, they saw corruption when there was none. Because they were so fakroch, they were so in depth in this mire of corruption. So you must have no respect for the leaders as well. It's not a fault in the judges. Whoever said the queen of Sheba is a queen. I'll tell you. You always say the queen of Sheba. Says whoever says the queen is a mistake. My Malchus Malchus it's the name of a kingdom. So Mashal says it's impossible. It's written in feminine, and there's so many. He wants to say, if I remember correctly, Mashal says that of course it's the queen of Sheba, but usually a queen is because of a king. The pasuk highlights the queen of Sheba. She was a queen because she was a queen, not because she was married to a king. And that's why it's called. That's what it means here, Malchus Shua. Tell you about further. And it came the day they came to argue of the Eibishter, all the problems that they had, what he was having, and then the Satan came as well. And Hashem said to the Satan, where are you coming from? And the Satan said, I'm traveling the world. So now the Gemara says, seems that Eve was set up, which makes it so sad. Says the Gemara, where are you coming from? I'm traveling the world. I travel the world. And I didn't find anybody as faithful as Abraham. Amar to Allah, you said to him, Kumis hala be'ez loch l'rach, and go walk the land because I'm giving it to you. The entire land was belong to him, and yet he only needs a small little plot of land to bury his wife Sarah. He had to pay an enormous astronomical amount of money. And did he complain? Not a word. He had no questions, didn't doubt for a second your promise to him. The Abisha said to Satan, did you look at my servant Eve? Eve is special. Said, so no, Satan is promoting Avram, and the Abisha promoting Eve. We'll see what happened as a result. In fact, what was written about Eve, the description is even greater than Avram. Another God-fearing person. All these extra things. There's a Yashar and a Yirei Elikim. There's Sor Mirah. My somebody money he goes with people. He was very generous with his money. Generally, people nice and if you owe money to somebody, only half a pruta, you don't have half a pruta. So you go to a storekeeper and say, look, I want to buy a pruta worth of goods. I'm going to take half a pruta worth, and this person will come in and take the other half. No, people don't forego the half a pruta. They just work out a way of how to make it work. Eve said, you know what? I owe you half pruta. Keep the change. Hashem, you make a big deal here. What's the big deal? You're protecting him at base. He had a good life. Why shouldn't he be approved? That's not a kunz. The kunz is when you have this yainus. You have challenges in life and you're still devoted. You blessed him. If anybody took money from Eve, he gets blessed, like it says in this forum, that the tzaddik's money never ends up with the goyim. So all the money of Eve, every time you bought something, somehow or another the money ended up back in your possession. So the money is blessed. Then it's a part of about it that is breached the boundaries of the land. Was and they went beyond the nature. The meaning of the world is that wolves kill ha'izim, that wolves kill goats. But his goats, they killed the wolves. So then now the Sultan's continuing the discussion with Abish. He says, so the Abish said to him, you want to test him? Fine. You can go and destroy whatever he has. But and he says, not on his ponim, I will bench him. What does that mean? Don't touch him personally. So now we start seeing the calamities that are taking place. Now Eve lived up 210 years, as we learned before. This happened all when he was around 70 years old, and then he lived another 140 years afterwards. So that's when he's around 70 years old, that's when all the challenges came. This is a life cycle, and all the Torahs came. They're all sitting, his whole family was sitting together eating by their brother. Then a message came to a thing, and he said, that the animals were plowing and the donkeys are doing their thing. At that time, things were going grand. That they were having a taste of Olam Haba. What is Olam Haba? The time the Mashiach will come. As soon as they fall pregnant, the same day they give birth. As soon as they planted the fields, that same day the wheat is sprouted. So the Gemara, and suddenly while they're talking, saying how wonderful things are, another guy came along and says, fire came from heaven and burnt over the sheep and the number of youth. And while they're still talking about that, one calamity, another guy came in, but the Kazim divided into three groups. And they went out there, they went ahead and they took over the camels. And then he heard by that calamity, another guy came, and then suddenly suddenly this terrible wind came along, and a hurricane and completely affected the four corners of the house. And the house collapsed on them, and they all passed away. And by Yochum Il, three terrible things happened, one after another, in succession. He ripped his shirt, and he shaved his head, and he fell on the ground. And he said, I came into this world naked. And I'm going to go back naked. Hashem Nosan, Hashem Lokach, Hashem Hashem look, and he was gracious about it. Didn't have any recriminations to Eibishter. Still, he did not sin, and he didn't have any complaints against Eibishter. And it came a day. Now we have there's a whole discussion with the Eibishter. And the same thing, traveling the world, and the Sultan's continually pushing Avram, and yet the Bashar should be want to bury Sarah, he didn't complain. Did you see my story? Nobody like him. And he's still faithful to me despite all the calamity that you brought on him. You convinced me to swallow him up for no reason. Had not been written the pasuk, the Abe just saying, you convinced me. It wasn't a plan. It's Ka'adam Shemasisnais, where Abisha was vulnerable and he was gullible and he was able to be convinced by Bilam. That this same Satan is the guy who comes down here and he causes you to sin, to stray, and then he's the one who goes and accuses you of being the Russia. And then he becomes a Malach and he punishes you. That's who he is. That's how cunning he is and sly. The skin comes and protects the skin. You place your hand in front of your face when somebody's about to smack you, and everything that you have, you'll give up to make sure you survive. So David says to him, if you want to hurt him, you can hurt him, of the guy and effective things, but I don't want you to touch him personally. Don't touch him personally. And he started to afflict Eve himself. The Satan had to contain himself, was more difficult than Yosef Mishali, more than Eve. The Rabbi said to him, you can break this barrel, but make sure the wine doesn't spill out. He says, who Satan, who Yetzirah, who Malachamavis, all the same person. Who Satan, the Satan left Hashem. Who Yetzirah, that always does evil all the time. And it says there, it says, don't kill him. No, you're the one who has the power to kill him. You're the Malachamavis. It says, all of them apply to the same Malach. All apply to the same Malach. The Satan actually is a Shem Shemayim. And the Rebbe said in the Tavshin Chai bringing, when a person, the Satan is doing Shemayim, that's his job. The Rebbe said that normally when you say you have Hira Chili, doing a Veda, you feel guilty because the Yetzer Tov suddenly comes to the fore. The Rebbe said, no, it's the Yetzer Hara himself. And the Yetzer Hara is saying, why did you listen to me? I had a job to do to convince you to go do an Avera. But you shouldn't have listened. And the Yetzer Hara feels bad. As the Gemara says right here, Satan Pnina l'shem Shemayim is kav. The Pnina was Chana's co-wife. Satan keeping the Chadagosh Baruch Hu not to die to Basar Amar. The Abish, why was the Satan talking about Avram when he saw the Abish was enamored with Eve? Amar Chas v'Shalom minshil rachmanusad Avram. The Abish would forget all the great, wonderful things Avram Avinu did with his Messias Nefesh. He was the only person then in the world. That's why he said all this. Penina, she taunted Chana, because Chana never davened for herself to have a child. So she taunted him and got her angry, so Chana should daven. It says, the reason why she did it is that Chana should daven. And Dosh Rabach Yaakov Punya said, Osa Satan and Nashkel Kare. This is Rabach Yaakov Dashan, that Satan Shem Shemayim, and the Satan came along and kissed his feet for saying positive things, or finally recognizing what his whole Indian is. The Kitzur, when Eve, the three counsels for Bilam, Eve, and Yisro. So Bilam was punished that he was killed by Pinchas. Yisro was rewarded, and he had to run away, but he was rewarded. Moshe Rabbeinu's son-in-law and everything else. And Eve was punished. All the Yisro of Eve was his punishment. Now Eve didn't say, when Pari said, "What should I do to the Jews?" Bilam said, "Kill them." Yisro said, "Spare them," and Eve remained silent. So the question is, why was Eve punished worse than Bilam? He abstained. Why is abstaining worse than saying, go, Rahman Islam, kill the Eden? So the word like this. Why the Gemara says in you're not allowed to go to these Colosseums to witness the gladiators fighting. But if you want to, what happens in the last moment before they give the final blow to the gladiator, give the final blow to the victim, he looks at the audience. If the audience has a thumbs down, then they kill the victim. If the audience has a thumbs up, you spare the victim. So it says you're allowed to go there if you want to put your thumb up. Now the question is, what's the point? There's thousands of jeering fans, anti-Semites, and you're one Yid standing with a thumb up, everyone else is thumb down. What's the point? The point is that when it hurts, you cry, and then you're allowed to go. So Eve was punished, one calamity after another, and then more calamities happened, and then he started having recrimination against the Abishur, and then more calamities happened. Why did he continue having recriminations? Going to Golfin didn't help. So why did he continue having recriminations? Because there's no cheshbon. If it hurts, you cry. You don't necessarily want to. You don't expect by crying anything's going to change, but it hurts your cries. And why was Eve abstaining? Eve thought, "Paddy already made up his mind." He's asking, he already made up his mind. Why should I abstain? So the Abishur wanted to teach him. This wasn't a punishment; it was a lesson in life. That abstaining, if it really bothered you that Eden's not going to be punished, or going to be hurt, you should have they're going to be slaves, you should have cried. Doesn't matter whether he's going to change his mind or not. And that's why his life was full of tzaddis to learn this lesson that when something bothers you, you cry out. The Ramban writes that the 70 years of Yisurim Gehenim doesn't come to 1 second. Sorry, 70 years of Yisurim of Eve doesn't come to 1 second of Yisurim Gehenim. So if you want to have a paradigm of Yisurim, this is it, Eve's life. And that doesn't come to 1 second of Gehenim. Pretty scary stuff. Okay. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.